record on this. So Hare Krishna everyone. So welcome to our Gita Gyan level 2. So we'll begin with prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarini Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are continuing our stories with the Gita Mahatmya. So we have now come to chapter 11. So without further ado, we'll begin. So Lord Shiva told to Parvati, now I will relate to you the glories of the 11th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. It is not possible to tell its full glories, as there are thousands of stories, but I will relate one of them only. So Lord Shiva is telling Parvati. So this story for chapter 11, it begins in a large town known as Megankara, which is in the banks of the river Pranita. So the river Pranita is one of the many branches of the Godavari River. Godavari River is very famous. You know, there are 7 very famous rivers in India. And usually when we want to perform worship, there's a cup of water. In the cup of water, there is, we keep water and we use it to purify ourselves. So there's a mantra we say in that cup of water. Om Ganga cha Yamuna chaiva Godavari Saraswate Narmade Sindhu Kaveri Na Jalismin Sanidim Kuru. So that means Na Jalismin Sanidim Kuru. Let all these holy 7 holy rivers, the waters of these 7 holy rivers, Na Jale, the water, let it all come and to this Achaman cup. So, and then we use that and then we name those waters. So Ganga cha Yamuna Chaiva Godavari. Godavari is one of those holy rivers, very famous. Saraswati River is now gone underground. It is no longer existing above the surface in India. So about 1,000 years ago, it started to flow underground, no more, extinct. So like that, one by one, these rivers will start going underground and become extinct also. That's one of the predictions in Kali Yuga. In Kali Yuga, one by one, these rivers will start becoming, going underground. They'll flow underground. So the Saraswati River already is doing that. So they say by the end of the Kali Yuga, the Ganga, actually it's not even the end, towards the half of the Kali Yuga, the Ganga River will no longer be flowing above ground. So anyway, so this is one of the rivers, Godavari. You can see here, Godavari. It starts from almost in the eastern part of India, the subcontinent of India. Starts from here, and then it flows all the way towards the western part. The basin is on the western part, which is the basin is in the state of Telangana. So it passes through Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, and Telangana, and then finally, so like that, in this river, this is the main branch, which is Godavari. Now this river Pranita is part of that branch. So you can see here in the main branch of the Godavari, you can see this color here. There are many other sub branches like Manjira, Pravara, Dudna, so like that. And this Pranita is one of those branches. So you can see Padma Purana, written 5,000 plus years ago. These stories are all not fairy tales. They are all accurate historical representative. These many of the cities, all the cities, the places, all of these things are still existing even today. So anyway, okay, I'll just mute you, Mataji. I think there's okay, don't mind me. Thank you. So on these banks of the river Pranita, there is this large town called Megankara. And in this Megankara, it's a very famous town, and it's particularly famous for its deity, which is called Jagat Ishwara. So Jagat Ishwara is the deity of Lord Vishnu, where the Lord has many arms, and in one of those arms, he carries the bow. So the Lord has many weapons. Like, for example, I mean, the famous weapons, like we know Sudarshan Chakra, and then we know the Komadaki Gada. So the Gada, you know, Gada is the mace, the mace which he carries to hit the demons. So that the name of that mace is called Kaumodaki. And then like that, there is also the bow. The bow is called Shringa. So like that, there are names, and each of these weapons, they are also personalities. They are all in spiritual, in the spiritual world, every object has consciousness. Even the weapons have consciousness. So like that, that's why even, you know, one of the Alvars was the incarnation of Sudarshan Chakra, like that. So this particular form of Lord Vishnu, having many arms and many heads, is known as Jagat Ishwara. So it's also representative for our chapter today, because our chapter is chapter 11. And if chapter 11, the title is the Vishwarupa, or the universal form of the Lord. If you remember from level 1, universal form of the Lord has many, many heads, many, many arms, many, many hands. So like that. So anyway, so that's the city, a bit of background about it. So in this town of Megankara, there lived a very pure Brahmana by the name of Sunanda. And this Sunanda will worship this deity, Jagat Ishwara. So, and he was a brahmachari. So this Sunanda, brahmachari, he had dedicated his entire life for the worship of the Lord in this way. He would sit in front of Sri Jagat Ishwara and recite the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita every day. And remember, and in this way, while reciting, he will remember the wonderful form of the Lord. So gradually, by doing this constantly, he gained complete control of his senses. And he was able to remember the Supreme Lord continuously by the grace of the Lord. So this is Sunanda Brahmachari. So by studying the Gita, particularly chapter 11. So in those days, sometimes like there are certain families where, you know, the Vedas are being passed down through orally. So there are some families which will specialize in certain parts of the Vedas. So like, someone who can memorize the entire Vedas, like they have Shruti-dar. Shruti-dar means one who's having photographic memory, or able to remember everything as soon as he hears them. So as Kali Yuga progresses, people with Shruti-dar capability are becoming less and less. So not everyone could memorize the entire scripture. So therefore, it will be handed down to different parts of the family members. So like you will remember this particular scripture. Okay, you will memorize this particular scripture. So like that, they will separate. And some particular families will even go deeper into just one chapter. So like that, it's not surprising that this Sunanda Brahmachari being taught by his family in this way from generation to generation, he was reciting one particular chapter. So this happens to be the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So it's very nice. We can also do that. We can teach our children also. Children are able to pick up very fast. So like, for example, I know few children who can recite the entire chapter 11, chapter 12, chapter 9, chapter 10. So like that. So they just have to do it every day. They keep doing it every day, one verse at a day. Like that, they can eventually remember. So it's quite easy. So anyway, so one day this Sunanda Brahmachari, he went on a pilgrimage. So along the Godavari River. So in the Godavari River, since it passes through so many beautiful cities from the east of India to the west of India, you can imagine so many temples are built. Many Vishnu temples are built along the Kaveri and the Godavari especially, you will find. And as he was traveling, so first he went to the Viraj Tirtha. So Viraj Tirtha, this is the huge lake, Viraj Tirtha. It is said like the water from the Viraj river, which is between the material world and the universal, between the material world and the spiritual world, it is said that there is a river which separates. So that river is Viraj. So a drop of that is mentioned to have come to this earth. So this is the Viraj river. You can see a temple over there. So this is in India. So along the river of the Godavari, there are many beautiful temples. So this Sunanda Brahmachari, he didn't go alone. He went with a group of his Brahmachari friends and some other people. And like that, they went, in this yatra, going from temple to temple, visiting all the holy places. They bathed in all the holy rivers and took darshan of all the deities. And then in this way, they worshipped and glorified the deities. And then like that, they moved. So one day, they reached the town called Vivaha Mandap. So in this Vivaha Mandap, Vivaha means marriage, but here is just given a name, Vivaha Mandap, in one of the towns. And it was getting dark. So along with his associates, he searched for a place to stay. And eventually he found a dharmashala. So a dharmashala is like a, it's like a ashram, where it's specifically meant in those days. Even now also, if you go to if you go to Tirupati, for example, there will be dharmashalas or ashrams where we can stay while we are taking the darshan and everything. So this has been built. Usually the kings in those days, they will build it for the various pilgrims who used to come. And free food will be given and things like that. So they found this wonderful mandapam. But before they went there, they met the leader of the village. So in that town or in the village, there's a leader, the headman. So this headman, as soon as he heard that this group of travelers have come, he was very eager. And then he received them nicely. And then he said, he received them very nicely. And he said, okay, I have a perfect dharmashala for you. It's a very beautiful dharmashala, full of nice convenience for you. And there you can take rest. So together with his, I think about almost 12 or 15 associates of this Sunanda, they all were traveling together, about 15 of them in a party. So they all went into this dharmashala. and they spent the night over there. So after they spent the night, when he woke up in the next morning, the Sunanda Brahmachari, when he woke up in the next morning, he found that his associates and his friends are all missing. They are not there. So then he was wondering, where could they have gone? As he was curiously looking for them, suddenly he was searching, and then suddenly the headman came. This headman, he came back and then said, "Oh, great personality, oh, wonderful personality. I cannot say where your associates have gone, but if you will please do me this one favor, I'm begging you very much. Please kindly do this one favor for me. Can you just stay here in this Dharmashala for just a few more days?" Why? Because I cannot tell you now, but if you will just do me this favor, so I'm begging you to stay. So that like that, the man will beg this man, the Sunanda Brahmachari. But the Sunanda Brahmachari says, "Okay, I will stay, but can you tell me what happened to my associates? I do not know where they have, what has become of them." So like that he was saying, and in this way, he will pacify Sunanda Brahmachari, but please remain here just a few more days and all will be made clear. So then Sunanda also decided to stay. So like that, he stayed for 8 days. After 8 days have passed, suddenly this headman, he started running towards Sunanda Brahmachari. He was running and he was crying. And then he fell at the feet of this Sunanda Brahmachari and said, "Oh, you are my only hope. Oh, please help me." Then when Sunanda Brahmachari asked, how can I help you? And then he said, "Actually, there's a very terrible secret in this village. This village looks nice, it looks beautiful, it looks very nice, and then this Dharmashala is very beautiful, but it harbors a very terrible secret. So the secret is this village is haunted. It's being haunted by a terrible, fearsome Rakshasa. So this Rakshasa has eaten my son." And then he started crying. And then he started crying completely. And Sunanda Brahmachari said, No, please tell me, how did this happen? What is this Rakshasa about? How did he eat your son? And then the villager said, in this town, this terrible Rakshasa one day came, and then he was undefeatable. He used to eat everybody in a very fearsome manner, and he terrorized everyone. But one day, somehow we were able to talk to this Rakshasa, and we made an agreement with him. So we told him that if we give you food every day, if we offer ourselves to you every day, will you leave us alone? Will you not, you don't terrorize us, let us continue with our lives, but we will offer you human sacrifice every day. So then the Rakshasa agreed. But how are you going to do that? You are having a village, you will eventually, all of you will die. And then the headman said, no. So in a very terrible voice, he said, what we will do is, this is along the route to a holy place. So many travelers will come to this area. So what we will do, we will build a Dharmashala, and in this Dharmashala, you can live hidden. And any travelers who come to our village, we will direct them to this Dharmashala, where they can spend the night, and you can then eat them to your heart's desire. So this was the arrangement made with this Rakshasa. So when the headman told this, he was crying. We had no choice. We were in a terrible situation. The Rakshasa would kill us all, our family and everybody. We were here. So that's the reason we have sinned and we have done all these things. But what happened was yesterday, so when you came, this is what happened to all your associates. All of you stayed in this Dharmashala, and when you were sleeping, this Rakshasa came and killed and drank all their blood and ate up all their bodies. But I was very amazed because you were not eaten, you were not touched. So I thought that you must be the most greatest, holiest personality. And that's why I begged you to stay. So that hopefully, maybe if you stayed longer, you would be able to solve our problem. So like that, he was crying. And then Sunanda Brahmachari said, okay, but tell me what happened to your, initially he was very sad about the loss of his associates. But then he asked, but please tell me, how did it happen that your son died? So then the hitman said, so what happened? My sins have come across me. My sins have chased me and they have caught up with me. So this is my fate. And then he started telling the story. He said, my son, he had a very close friend who visited him. And I didn't realize that this person was a very close friend of my son. So what I did, I made the traveler to go and stay in the Dharmashala in one of the rooms. It's a very big place, so there are many, many rooms. So in one of the rooms, I made him stay. But when my son found out, he realized that what I have done, he became very angry with me, and then he ran to this Dharmashala, hoping that he could save this person, his friend, from the Rakshasa if he was on time. But unfortunately, he was too late. The Rakshasa had already eaten his friend, and when my son came, the Rakshasa also ate him up. So, and when I came, I saw the situation, how horribly my son had been killed. My heart broke and my mind broke. So I became so upset. And then I pleaded with the Rakshasa, what have you done? But the Rakshasa only replied, I didn't know that he was your son. When he came to the Dharmashala, the agreement was anyone who comes to Dharmashala, I will kill him and I will eat him. And then but I didn't know he was your hitman, he was your son. So and then the headsman, he pleaded with the Rakshasa, oh Rakshasa, you are so powerful, you have magical powers, you have tantra, you are able to change, you are able to control the elements. Do you have any way where you can bring back my son? Can you bring him back to life? And then the Rakshasa said, such is not in my power. But you are very fortunate because I am not an ordinary Rakshasa. I was actually cursed to be a Rakshasa in this form. And what will happen is, if I'm also waiting here, I'm also passing my time in this village, because the condition of my curse was that if one day a person comes and recites the Bhagavad Gita chapter 11, and then after reciting this verse to me, sprinkles some water onto my face, then I will lose this form of a Rakshasa and I will be freed from this curse. So when the headsman heard this, and then he was said, oh, okay, so there is hope. And then the Rakshasa said, when I am freed from this curse, I was also told that whoever I had killed will also be liberated. They also will be freed. They will come back to life. So then the headsman got this great hope, which started to burn in his heart. And then he asked the Rakshasa, okay, but you've told me, okay, now I'm hopeful. But can you tell me why you did not kill the Sunanda Brahmachari? That he was there also, but you did not kill him. And then the Rakshasa said, you are extremely fortunate, because he is that person who I have been waiting for. But unfortunately, due to my curse, I cannot appear even in front of him. So therefore, I cannot directly speak to him, but I am waiting that one day he is the one, because he is someone who is reciting the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And if he can only he can release me. So in this way, the headsman, he ran, and then he came and spoke to Sunanda Brahmachari. And this is how the story is unfolded. So Sunanda Brahmachari was amazed. Really? So, okay. But can I know what is the, how is it that, this such a creature came into being in the first place? What kind of curse? So then after that, the headsman, he told Sunanda Brahmachari, I was also curious about this. So therefore, as soon as the Rakshasa told me about his situation of being cursed, I asked him, how is it that you were cursed, O Rakshasa? Please tell me. And then the Rakshasa also told his story. He said, I wasn't a Rakshasa all my life. In my previous life, I was a farmer. I was just a simple farmer. I was a landlord. I did my own farming. I grew crops. And I lived in this town only, but many hundreds of years ago. So, and one day I was guarding the fields when what happened, just a distance away from me, there was a young man who was walking down along the road. So when this young man was walking, he was actually coming close towards my land, and he stepped foot into my land area, and he was crossing. But suddenly, out of the blue, a dark shadow covered the field, and then a fearsome looking vulture-like creature, like a condor. So such a creature came and it started to attack the man. And when he started to attack the man was in terrible pain. And nearby, there was also another person who was walking along the road. And he was a sage, a Muni, a great Muni. He was walking along the road. So while the Muni was walking along the road, he saw what was happening. He saw how this fearsome vulture-like creature was attacking the young man. And he rushed towards the scene with the intention of saving the young man. But as soon as he came, he was too late. The condor had already killed that young man, and he already had started eating some parts of him, and then he flew away when the sage came. So the sage, as soon as he came and then he saw this, and he saw also that the farmer was nearer, much nearer compared to the sage, and yet the farmer did not do anything. So as soon as he saw that the farmer didn't even lift a finger to help that man who lost his life, he became very angry. And then he started chastising the man. Oh, what kind of person are you? Someone had entered your land. It's like as if he's like your guest. And you could not at least offer him a seat, but at least you could have tried to save him from this calamity. So then he said, such a person who doesn't help a person who is in distress certainly goes to hell. So the sage told him, after suffering in hell for a very long time, such a person who fails to help someone who is in need due to his life, such a person, after suffering in hell for a very long time, he takes birth as a wolf. And one who helps someone in need, so consequently, but if someone helps a person in need, certainly pleases Sri Vishnu, the sage said. Just like one who attempts to save a cow from the hands of a ferocious animal, one who saves a low-class man or one who saves a cow from a low-class man or a wicked ruler, he also will attain the abode of Sri Vishnu for pleasing the Lord, ultimately, eventually. So the Muni said, one who sees others in danger from thieves, snakes, fire, attack by weapons, and even though he is capable of helping them, but he does not help them, he is certainly punishable by Yamaraj. And then the sage tells him, you wicked farmer, You definitely saw that the vulture was attacking that person, but you still made no attempt to save him. So now I curse you. I curse you to be a wicked Rakshasa, a flesh-eating Rakshasa. And then the farmer was alarmed, and then he immediately fell down at the feet of this Muni, and then he pleaded with him, "Oh, please forgive me. I was very, very tired. Actually, I was watching the fields for the whole night, being very greedy and being very attached to my wealth and to my fields. I was being overly careful with the fields. I wouldn't allow anyone to even trespass, and I would day and night guard this very carefully. But because I was so tired, I hardly slept well. So that's one of the reasons I didn't really go and help. I was just feeling too tired. So please be merciful to me, O sage." So the sage was merciful. So he said, "Nevertheless, my curse is already pronounced. You still deserve to go through this. But because of your repentance," so the farmer truly was repenting. He was repenting his loss of everything, his loss of wealth, his loss of life, and he was very repentful. So the Muni accepted his repentance, and he said, "Well, the saving grace will be, this curse will also be a blessing. By this curse, you will receive your greatest benediction. Because the person who will save you from this curse is someone who is able to recite the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And you will meet this person eventually. And by him reciting the 11th verse of the Bhagavad Gita and sprinkling some water on you, your curse will immediately end." So, and not only it will end, it will give you the greatest benediction you could have hoped for. So in this way, the sage pronounced his curse and left. And then immediately this farmer lost his life and turned into a fearsome Rakshasa, and he ravaged his own field. And in this way, he started his reign of terror in that land. So this is the story recounted by the headsman to Sunanda Brahmachari. And then Sunanda Brahmachari, the headsman, asked him, "Can you please help me? Please go and recite Srimad Bhagavad Gita 11th chapter at least 7 times, and then sprinkle your water on this or all around this area, and the Rakshasa will appear in front of you." So he did that. Sunanda Brahmachari, he went and then he sprinkled. And then what happened? As soon as he did that, the Rakshasa appeared and the water touched him, and he heard the recitation of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 11. And immediately his form melted and he transformed into a Vishnu Duta. He received the same type of form as Lord Vishnu. See, there are in Vishnu, in Vaikuntha, there are 5 different types of liberation. So one of the types of liberation awarded by Lord Vishnu to the devotees is Swarupya Mukti. So there's Salokya Mukti. Salokya Mukti means the liberation that one is able to stay in the same place as Lord Vishnu in Vaikuntha Loka. So that is Salokya. That means same Loka, Salokya. And then there's Srishti. Srishti Mukti means such a person is given the same opulence as Lord Vishnu, almost. So very, very high level of opulence. They have power, prestige, and everything, and everything is given over there. And also the beauty of Lord Vishnu's form. So Sarupya, they get the same form of Lord Vishnu also. So like that, Srishti, Salokya, Sarupya, and then there is Sarokya, Sarupya, Srishti. I can't remember the other 2. I can't remember the other 2. Maybe I can mention it the next time. Maybe it'll come to me. But anyway, so these are the different types of liberation. So this personality, he got Salokya and he got Sarupya Mukti, just like that. So it was very amazing. And not only he was there, a aeroplane, a flower aeroplane came with other Vishnu Dutas, and they invited him into the plane, and together they all left for Vaikuntha. And then, but before they left, this headsman, he ran to this Vishnu Dutas, and he told them, oh, he addressed the Rakshasa, which transformed into the Vishnu Duta. He told him, oh, Rakshasa, you are now a wonderful Vishnu Duta. Please, you promised me that my son will return back to me, all those people who have died. So as soon as he was speaking, many people who were around in that Dharmashala, all those who have died in that Dharmashala area, all of them also took the form of Vishnu, like this, Sarupya. They all got the Vishnu Duta form, and they all appeared around him also. And then the Rakshasa, who was previously the Rakshasa, now he's a purified, liberated Vishnu Duta. So now he told the headsman, oh, he laughed. Don't worry. All of them are already here. They're all already liberated. So here is your son who you had lost. And then he pointed to another Vishnu Duta. And then that son, previously who was his son, to him, the headsman addressed him, oh, my son, you please come back to me. Please come home with me. But that son, who is no longer a son now, he's Vishnu Duta, he told, he said, my dear headsman. He didn't address him as father. He said, my dear headsman or Jiva, many times you have been my son, and I have also been your son in different births that we have taken since time immemorial. But now, by the grace of this great pure devotee, Sunanda Brahmachari, I have been released from this wheel of samsara, of this birth and death. And now I am going back home to my real home, to Vaikuntha. So I will not be returning back to this samsara cycle, to your home. So dear, oh Jiva, you can also attain this, what I have attained. So please surrender unto the lotus feet of Sunanda Brahmachari. So he is such a pure devotee. Surrender unto him and hear from him and become his disciple and learn the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in this way. So, and perfect your life. Just like how he spoke the chapter 11 and purified all of us. So in this way, you also can hear and understand and recite this Bhagavad Gita chapter 11. And you will also be able to attain the abode of the Supreme Lord. And then he says, from Sri Krishna's mouth, these nectarian instructions came on the battlefield of Kurukshetra in reply to the questions of his friend Arjuna. And only by hearing and reciting this discourse can one break the tight knot which is binding us to this wheel of birth and death. So in this way, finally, Lord Shiva tells Parvati. So this is what happened. So after speaking these words full of wisdom to his father, along with all those other fortunate souls, the son and the Rakshasa and all those who had died in the Dharmashala, all went back to Vaikuntha. And then his father, receiving this instruction, also learned the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita from Sunanda Brahmachari. And very soon, at the end of their life, they also went back to Vaikuntha. So this is the story of the glory of chapter 11 as recounted by Lord Shiva to Parvati. Then he says, my dear Parvati, you have heard the glories of the 11th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, which is capable of destroying all sinful reactions. So with that story, right? So we can meditate on that story and think about all the different aspects that we would have learned. So how, in the beginning, we can, as I said, these stories, they teach us many things. Not only philosophy, not only the glories of Bhagavad Gita, it also teaches us It teaches us culture. It teaches us what is the correct behavior and what is sinful activity and what is not sinful activity. So in this story, we heard how we should be very careful in dealing with people, especially when someone is in danger. So we should help them. So if we fail to help them, right, then that is considered sinful activity, and it's very condemnable. So these are some of the types of problems that one could get in our next life. So basically, all these things are meant for us to actually lead a moral and pious life. But piety alone is not sufficient to save one. So ultimately, one needs spiritual credits or akarma. So that alone can destroy the knot of birth and death. But in order for us to even attain to that piety, to that spiritual credits, piety helps to attract such people. So when we perform pious activities, what's the advantage? Why should we do pious activities then if we are not able to break the cycle of birth and death? Though we may not be able to break the cycle of birth and death, but we will get right facilities. We will be put in situations in our lives where we will have many opportunities for us to perfect our life, for us to come into contact with spiritual personalities or spiritual activities. So this is the purpose of piety. It creates agyata sukruti, because simply by performing pious acts, we follow the word of the Supreme Lord as put in the Vedas. And simply by following the word of the Supreme Lord, it pleases the Lord. So that pleasing of the Lord creates the piety, creates the agyata sukruti, which attracts the mercy of devotees. So when we are able to attract the mercy of devotees, then we are very, very fortunate. If we come into contact with devotees, we come into contact with any spiritual paraphernalia, so then our life becomes perfected, because we will get so many opportunities to hear and in this way improve our, to perform devotional service. Okay, so that is basically the story of the Gita Mahatmya given. So let us now, okay, let me check the time. Okay, 8:40. Okay, let us now go to the chapter 11 itself. So what is this chapter 11? So if you remember, this topic was called the universal form, or Vishwa Rupa Darshana Yoga. So this is after we heard chapter 10. So Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has been giving different instructions. Initially, he tells Arjuna, okay, you need to perform your duty, because if you perform your duty, you will gain. You will enjoy the kingdom, you can go to heaven, because all these are your reward. Why you get reward? So you get reward because you perform pious activities, which pleases the Lord. But then he tells Arjuna, there is something greater than this reward, this material reward. That is the ability for you to destroy this cycle of birth and death. And after that, you are able to attain the perfect eternal spiritual kingdom. And over there, you will never return again, and you will enjoy unlimited bliss. So step by step, Krishna reveals this information to Arjuna. How he begins by saying, you do your duty, right? You can enjoy, but don't worry too much about enjoyment. Do your duty not because you are motivated for the fruits of enjoyment, but rather do it as an offering to me. So therefore, he tries to tell Arjuna, do Bhakti Yoga. So like that, slowly, step by step, first he tells him, do Karma Yoga. Okay, do it for duty's sake alone. But better than that is to do it for me. So he begins to establish Karma Yoga, and he also establishes Bhakti Yoga in chapter 2 itself. And then later, he goes to chapter 3, and then chapter 4, Jnana Yoga. And in this way, chapter 5, chapter 6, chapter 7. And in chapter 7, he tells, okay, all these other yogas, these are for the asuyas, the envious, who cannot accept devotional service because they cannot bow down to me and accept the Supreme Master. So for them, I give them the other types of yogas where they can also purify themselves. They can also come to a higher level. And then eventually, because their ego is already purified, they will be able to surrender to me in an easier way. But you, Arjuna, are a devotee. So you don't have this problem. You are not envious. You are anasuya. You are free from envy. So therefore, take up this path of bhakti. So after telling all these things, then in chapter 7, Krishna tells Arjuna, what is the purpose of this bhakti? The purpose of this bhakti is to attain me. I am the ultimate. I am the supreme. So he reveals his real position in chapter 7. And then he goes on, and chapter 7, chapter 8, chapter 9, he talks. And then finally, chapter 10, Arjuna will ask his first question. All the way from chapter 7, he just listens. And then in chapter 10, he will say, okay, I accept whatever that you have told me, Krishna. You are definitely the ultimate supreme personality of Godhead. But then he tells, Arjuna will tell Krishna, but you have mentioned that you enter into this material world through just a spark of your splendor. So can you show me that spark? So why he's asking this? Because Arjuna is now acting for the benefit of all the people in this world. Because Arjuna, his illusion is already gone. He tells Krishna, my illusion is gone. And he already fully accepts. But he knows that still people may not accept. So therefore he says, now you have told me, without even showing me anything, I accept what you say. But can you now show a spark of your power? Can you reveal that universal form so that no one else will doubt you? So in this way, Krishna will reveal his universal form. So can you show me? I have heard your inexhaustible glories. Can you show me? So therefore, Krishna will reveal his universal form. And after seeing this universal form, very, very beautiful, where he sees everything, all the different universes, all of them are present within this form of the Lord. And all the devas, all the living entities, all are part and parcel of this supreme universal form. All the elements are part of this. Everything is there. So after seeing all this wondrous situation, Arjuna begins to pray. So he says, Arjuna uvacha pasyami devam stava devadehe sarvam stata bhuta visesha sangan brahmanam isham kamalasanastam rishimscha sarvan uragamscha divyan. You are the supreme primal objective. You are the ultimate resting place of this universe. You are inexhaustible and you are the oldest. You are the maintainer of the eternal religion, the personality of Godhead. So he glorifies, he offers these prayers. So here's a nice prayer. We can also try to memorize this prayer. Very beautiful prayer we can say to the Lord when we visit temples and we see the deity. So like that. And here, but sorry, this particular verse is 11:15. Just now I said the translation of 11:18. So 11:15, he says, I see assembled in your body all the devatas, demigods, and various other living entities. I see Brahma sitting on the lotus flower, as well as Lord Shiva, and all the sages and the divine serpents. All of them I see in you. And then he says, you are the ultimate, you are the inexhaustible, you are the oldest. So like that, he starts to glorify. So many prayers by Arjuna, glorifying the Supreme. And then he says, Anadi Madhyantam Ananta Viryam. So he says, you are the origin, you are the middle, and you are the end. Anadi, Madhyam, Madhyam means middle, and Ananta, Anta means end. So you are without origin, Anadi, Anadi, that means no origin. And you are the middle, the original, and the end. All of them you are. Madhya means middle. Antya, antam comes from the word antya, that means beginning. And then anta means at the end. Your glory is unlimited. Ananta Viryam. Okay. And you have numberless arms, and the suns and moons are your eyes. I see you with blazing fire coming forth from your mouth, and in this way heating the entire universe by your radiance. And although you are one, so here Arjuna, he says, he acknowledges, you are one. Your personality is one. You are one, but yet you spread throughout the sky and the planets and all the space between. So this is Arjuna's prayer. So we can see from verses 11.5 to 11.48, Arjuna's vision of the entire universal form. So Krishna will give divine eyes, Divya Chakshu, to Arjuna. He says, you cannot see me with your current eyes. So therefore, I will give you the special eyes. So that's a very important point. How we cannot see spirituality with our eyes directly in our conditioned state. We need to become purified, and then we can see God face to face. So just like, so in the beginning, if we cannot see, then how can we understand? So the most important sense in our, the senses which we have in the beginning is our ears, not our eyes. So we hear, we actually see the Lord through our ears. So that's the reason it begins with Shravanam, Bhakti, devotional service, where we hear the glories of the Lord, we hear about his pastimes, we hear about his devotees, we hear about his energies, we hear about his qualities. All of this we hear, and as we hear, we become purified, and we understand further and further about the nature of the Lord. And slowly our eyes become tinged with the salve of love. Where's the evidence? There is this verse in the Brahma Samhita. Premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena santa sadaiva hridayeshu vilokayanti yam shama shundaram achintya guna swarupam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. So prema anjana. So anjana means ointment. It's like kajal. You know, ladies, they put kajal in their eyes. So this ointment, anjana, it's not ordinary anjana. It is premanjana. So with prema, with love, when we hear the Lord, when we hear about all these things, we develop love and for the Lord. And that with that love for the Lord, we apply this in our eyes, then we can see the Lord in everything, and we can see face to face directly. So this is the philosophy, how we can see. So Arjuna is already purified by the grace of the Lord. He is simply an instrument in the hands of the Lord. So very easily Arjuna could see the universal form. So not only Arjuna, there were also others who could see. Bhishma Dev, Yudhishthira Maharaj, all these are also pure devotees of the Lord. They could also see. And some of the Devatas also, like Lord Shiva, Brahma, and Surya, and Vayu, Agni, some of them can see the Supreme Lord during this time. So then, after that, we heard some of the Arjuna's prayers. And then this beautiful, effulgent, majestic form started to take a darker shade. It started to become scary. It started to become fearsome. Fire was coming out, destroying the universe, right? He saw all the people entering into the mouths of the many, many mouths of the universal form. So then from Virat Rupa, he is showing now Kala Rupa, the form of eternal time, which is very, very scary. So the form of eternal time is actually the greatest destroyer of this entire creation. Time I am, Krishna will say, like that. in chapter 11. So one of the verses in chapter 11. So Kala Rupa Darshan, and then Arjuna prays to the Supreme Lord, oh, please show me back your original beautiful form. Let this vision be finished. So then Krishna will also say, okay, let it be finished. And then he will tell Arjuna about his special form, which is the Swayam Rupa Krishna. So he tells Arjuna, this special form that you are now seeing is very, very special. It is not seen by Devatas also. Even they do not know my original form. So, and it is not easy to be for you to understand this form of mine. You cannot understand it by the Vedas, by austerity, by charity, or even by worship. Because worship doesn't necessarily mean with bhakti. So, but Krishna says you can only understand this ultimate form of mine by ananya bhakti, pure bhakti, bhakti which is not mixed with karma or jnana. That means bhakti which is not mixed with self, any kind of selfish motive in the least. So that kind of bhakti which is possible to be achieved, that only will give us the darshan of the Supreme Lord directly. So here is saying Swayam Rupa Krishna, Sudurdarsham, very rare, this particular form. Even devas are aspiring to see, right? So, and that we mentioned already. So how can we see Krishna? Krishna will reveal in this verse, Bhaktya tu Ananya, pure devotional service, right? So he says, my dear Arjuna, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding. So to become liberated, to attain mukti, even Salokya mukti or Sarupya mukti in Vaikuntha, is quite commonplace. There are many, many opportunities to achieve this mukti, so long as we we take shelter of these 6 boats, the boats of the Bhagavad Gita, the boats of chanting the holy name, the boat of Ekadasi, the boat of Tulasi, the boat of Charnamrita and Prasadam. So like that, anyone who takes shelter of these, even though they are not completely purified, they can very easily attain Vaikuntha Loka, liberation. But to attain the pure devotional service, seva of the Lord, because it's one thing to attain Vaikuntha. Just because we attain Vaikuntha doesn't guarantee that we have bhakti. Because bhakti is something which is a function of the free will of the jiva. The jiva has to develop it. That's why we are all here in this world currently also. Because initially we were all with the Lord in Vaikuntha Loka. But because we did not develop bhakti, we instead developed envy. And therefore we came here. So the only thing that can guarantee us from not falling down ever again is bhakti. So if we want to develop bhakti, then we have to follow the regulative principles of devotional service. So only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding and develop bhakti. So here, this is the essence of Bhagavad Gita. This particular verse, which comes in 1155, it is described by the Acharyas to be the entire essence of the whole Bhagavad Gita. So whatever topics the Bhagavad Gita has discussed, ultimately the focus is this. So it's a very, very important verse. Mat karma krin mat paramu mat bhaktaha sangha varjitaha nirvairaha sarva bhuteshu yaha samam eti pandava. Translation is, my dear Arjuna, he who engages in my pure devotional service, Ananya Bhakti, free from the contaminations of fruitive activity, that means without any desire for self-gain, That means whatever we do it for the pleasure of Krishna and Krishna alone only. To come to that pure stage, it's possible, right? And without any mental speculation, because there are some people who like to hear because they find it entertaining. So they listen to spiritual topics and all. They find it mentally stimulating, mentally entertaining, but they do not take it up. They do not take up the seva. They do not take up the instructions. But it's still purifying, but that is mixed bhakti. It is not pure. So pure means to dedicate one's life for the service of the Lord. And that does not mean that one has to be a sannyasi or one has to be a brahmachari. No. It simply means that whatever activities that we do, it's like this. Prabhupada gives the example. It's not only Prabhupada, Vishwanath Chakravarti, he gives the example. It's just like, let's say a lady, if a lady has a married lady, if she has a lover, an affair. So if the lady is very intelligent, let's say the lady is married to a very rich man or whatever, her life is good and everything, but she wants to have an affair with one of her, with someone. So what she will do if she's very intelligent? If she's very intelligent, she will ensure that all her duties to her husband is very nicely done, perfectly done, without anything, so that the husband will not suspect in any way. So there is nothing which is lacking. Everything the wife does, she does it perfectly, but always in her mind, she's thinking about her lover. So in the same way, though the example is rather a crude example, but it is exactly the type of mentality we need to adapt in our day-to-day life. So we have various duties. We have duties to our family, we have duties to our children, we have duties to our society, we have duties to our job. So to the extent that we need to do them, we do them perfectly, properly, right? But always our mind is thinking, when can I go to, just like how, when we are, the lady is thinking, when can I connect to my lover? So in the same way, we are thinking, when will I connect to the Supreme Lord? So always thinking of the Lord, dedicating, whenever the time gets, whenever we get free time, we try to do spiritual activity for the pleasure of the Lord. So this is something practicable. We can do it. Practice makes perfect. Initially, it's difficult. Initially, we may feel, oh, I don't want to do all these things. I want to do something else. But with faith and conviction and in association of like-minded people, we can develop this. And as we practice, especially as we chant the holy names of the Lord and we follow the regulative principles given by the acharyas, it is a sure thing. Definitely, we will attain this goal. And it has been attained by many, many people in the past. So he who works for me, who makes me the supreme goal of his life, and who is friendly to every living being, that means non-envious, he certainly comes to me. So this is the key. We should meditate on this verse, carefully read this verse, go through the purport very nicely, and try to see how we can imbibe this in our life. So Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam, he is the ultimate supreme personality of Godhead. And in this way, chapter 11 fully shows the glory of the Supreme Lord. So that is the conclusion of this chapter. Okay, so now that we have done chapter 11, right? I will just quickly go to practical spirituality. So practical spirituality, as we were doing from last week, we were discussing the nectar of instruction. Nectar of instruction, Sri Upadeshamrita. So this was written by Srila Rupa Goswami, the direct disciple of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You can see the picture. And I'll just recap a little. What was the previous verse that we did in the last week, or the week before? So the verse that we did was verse 1. Vacho vegam, manasa krodha vegam, jivva vegam, udara prashta vegam, etan vegan yo vishahita dhira, sarvam apimam prithvim sa sisyat. So translation, if you remember, a sober person who can tolerate the 6 urges. Anyone can remember what are the 6 urges? Anyone can remember? What are the 6 urges that we need to control? You know, jivva starts with so you've forgotten. Okay, so it starts with the Tongue. It starts with the tongue, jiva, right? Jiva means tongue. So it's all in a straight line. You see the tongue, the belly, udara, the belly, and the pashta, which is the genitals. If you notice, they are all in the same line. It's like a straight line from the tongue to the belly to the. It's not like it's like the heart is a bit to the left, the liver is a bit to the left or right. So like that. But here, the tongue, the belly, and the genitals are all in the same line. So the understanding is, if we can control the tongue, then automatically we can control the belly and we can automatically control the genitals. So the key to controlling lust is to control the tongue. Not only sexual lust, but any kind of lust desire for this, for that, things like that. So a sober person who can tolerate the urge to speak. So the tongue has 2 functions. One is to speak, one is to vibrate sound. So urge to speak, and the other was to eat, right? So the urge to speak, the mind's demand. So vacho means speech, manasa, mind, krodha, anger, jiva, tongue, udara, which is the belly, and pashta, which is the genitals. The urge to speak, the mind's demands, the actions of anger, and the urges of the tongue, belly, and genitals. Tongue here refers to the desire to eat, to taste. So the speech and the taste both controlled through the tongue. So one can do this, then what happens? He is qualified to make disciples all over the world. So such a person is very, very great. So we should try in this direction. Consciously, we should have this thought, subconsciously also. But actually, it's not possible to do this very easily unless we have the grace of the Lord. So that's the reason, at the same time, we continue to chant. So by chanting Hare Krishna, we utilize the tongue, which is the jiva, which is used to vibrate the names of the Lord, and it is also used to taste prasadam of the Lord. So in this way, the tongue is very easily controlled, simply by chanting and simply by eating prasadam. So no need to do anything else. Simply do these things only, and you will find that you are able to control your tongue. And you will find that you are able to control. When the tongue is able to be controlled, upstairs and downstairs are controlled automatically. What is upstairs to the tongue? The mind. So the mind automatically becomes controlled. And what is downstairs to the tongue? The belly and the genitals, automatically controlled. And when all these are controlled, anger will no longer move us. So this is the scientific method of how it works. So that is what we did last week, the week before last. The week for us to meditate on for this week, the verse is verse 2. So I'll just say it. Atyaharaha prayasascha prajalpo niyamagraha jana sangascha laulyam cha sadbir bhaktir vinashyati. So this verse says, sadbir bhakti vinashyati. What is vinasha? Vinasha means destroy. Bhakti. What can destroy bhakti? These 6 things these 6 things will destroy the growth of bhakti. Bhakti can never be destroyed directly, but its growth can be hampered again and again and again in such a way that it will never really grow. So what are these 6 things? So one's devotional service is spoiled when he becomes too entangled in the following 6 activities. So what's the first one? The first one is atyahara and prayasas. So what is atyahara? Atyahara, eating more than necessary. So that is already mentioned in the previous verse, right? Jiva, so to control the tongue. So more information now is given on what is this controlling the tongue. Eating more than necessary. So this is not only good for health, because according to Ayurveda, and even in the Brahmanda Purana, Lord Vishnu directly tells, there's a verse where Lord Vishnu says, what is actually the cause of disease? So, and one of those things he mentions, the root of all diseases comes from the belly. Because when the digestion is not proper, then that creates ill diseases. So anyway, that is the concept of Ayurveda. So Ayurveda recommends that we eat only half of what we think we can eat. So if we think we can eat 1 plate fully and not more, then we should eat half of that. So this is good practice. Anyone who is serious in being healthy and also serious in spiritual life will practice like this. So eat half of what you think we can eat fully. So keep half the stomach full with food, quarter the stomach filled with water, and quarter the stomach filled with air. So this is the perfect combination to promote good digestion. And it will also balance the mind. It will not agitate the mind. So it creates the conducive environment. Of course, the type of food which we put into the stomach also matters, isn't it? So therefore, eating more than necessary. That is atyahara. Atyahara has 2 meanings. So a lot of these words here has double meaning. So eating more than necessary, it also has the meaning in a certain context, collecting more funds than required, or collecting more and more collection. So for example, eating is one thing, living is also another. Simple living, not to unnecessarily make collections. There are people who like to collect 4,000 handbags or 300 different types of shoes or 7,000 different types of saris. And so like that, there are different types of, there are people, these are all real stories. I can name you such people who are doing these things. And in this way, it actually is atyahara, or even wealth, or even things like that, to collect more than necessary. So what is this necessary? So what is necessary? That is something which we have to think about on our own, and decide to what extent are we going to commit our valuable time and energy and resources to collecting materialistic things. So that is atyahara. Okay, so it's 9:11 now. This verse, we can break it up into many, it's a very interesting verse. We can break it up into many parts. So I will not talk about prayasas today. So atyahara we have discussed. So if anyone wants to share any thoughts, any questions they want to raise, or anything particular we want to discuss based on your reading or whatever, we can spend a bit of time to discuss that. So we'll stop here. Then, okay, so I'll just look at the chat. There is one question by Malati Mataji. Hare Krishna, the Rakshasa being male took the form of Vishnuduta. What if it's a female? Do they also take Vishnuduta form? So very nice question, Mataji. So this is some point which we should mention also. So actually, there is Ishwara and there is Jiva. There is Purusha and there is Prakriti. right? Ishwara means the controller and Jiva is the energy. Jiva is part of the Shakti of the Lord. And at the same time, it is also Amsa, an expansion of the Lord. So the Jiva has the tendency to enjoy Purusha. So, like, even in Tamil, we say Purusan. Purusan means, like, usually we say husband. So there is only one Purusha, and that Purusha is the Supreme Lord. The Jiva, sometimes due to his illusion, he thinks he is Purusha, but actually he's not. He is Prakriti. Prakriti means to be enjoyed. Purusha is the enjoyer, and Prakriti is to be enjoyed by the Purusha. So the Acharyas explain that the Jiva Tattva, actually by nature we are Prakriti. So therefore all Jivas are actually female. So this may come as a shock. So all Jivas in nature of Prakriti, we are female. And there is only one male, which is the Supreme Lord. But nevertheless, because there is also Amsa, which is the expansion of the Lord, if the Jiva so wishes, he can try to take up the enjoying potency nature, which is male form. So he can take, generally the Jiva is female, but he can adopt that persona in the spiritual world if they want to. But in relationship with the Lord, their behavior is always subservient. It is never as the Purusha, as the enjoyer. So in that sense, yes. So the Jiva, in that sense, it's free from gender, because gender in the material world is also there, male, female. So the Vishnu Duta form, there are also females and there are also males. So it depends on the inclination of the Jiva, on his rasa, on how they want to enjoy the spiritual world in relationship with the Lord. So one can have a relationship with the Lord in a particular rasa, or if they want to be having a certain type of rasa, it might be different. So some rasas are better to be experienced in the female form, and some rasas are better to be experienced in the male form. So in this way, it depends on the inclination of the mood of the devotee, or the mood of the jiva in relationship with the Lord. So that depends. So there's both female and there is also male. But it doesn't mean that we are always, like, for example, if let's say someone is born as a girl in this life, it doesn't mean that in their next life they will also be girl. They can be a boy. In fact, the Vedas say, if the wife is expected to always remember her husband, because when she dies, she will think of her husband. And when she thinks of her husband, she will attain a male form. So like that. And whereas the husband is not supposed to always think of the wife, especially at the time of death. That's why the dharma is different. For men, it is sense control and it is renunciation at the end of their lives. They are supposed to leave home and actually go and dedicate themselves fully into spiritual life. Whereas for the lady, that is not the dharma. The dharma is chastity, faithfulness to the husband, and by service to such a husband. In this way, the wife automatically, without any extra endeavor, gets all the good karma of the husband automatically. No need to do anything else. Whereas the husband gets the bad karma of the wife also, and the husband has to actually take up all the spiritual activities to purify himself and everything. So anyway, I think I'm digressing quite a lot in this topic. So I think I've answered you already. It's a very deep subject matter, but this is basically the essence. Okay, Mataji. So I hope that answers. Any questions from anyone? Anyone wants to raise anything? So now you can all go and tell your husbands, you're actually female. in Tattva, because you are Prakriti, not Purusha.
Oh my God.
Any questions, anybody? Anyone wants to share anything? What do you think of this nectar of instruction verses? We should try to remember them and try to meditate points along the week as we talk about. And if you have anything you'd like to raise, questions, surely you will have some doubts or anything. Anytime, please feel free to raise them.
Sure.
Okay. So thank you very much then. If there are no questions, I don't see anything else in the chat. So hope have a good remaining evening for the day, and I will see you all again next week. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Sri Bhagavan Krishna ki jai, Bhagavad Gita ki jai.
Very much, Prabhu.